All right. Hey, everybody. Hope you are all having a very nice evening, as always. Don't know how many people are watching. It doesn't matter. I have Den here who is helping out with comments and moderation, as always. So he'll comment with his name in the comments whenever he says stuff. And all right, we got so many things we are going to get to today, including the weirdest hypothetical question I have ever seen. I figured I would start tonight by talking about the wacky essay written by Ayaan Hirsi Ali. This is what she posted on a right wing website called Unheard. And if you're not familiar with it, it's all right. It's one of those websites where you see a lot of anti woke type of articles. But if you're not familiar, I was actually surprised to learn that there were a lot of people who aren't that familiar with Ayaan Hirsi Ali because, unlike me, you are young. But back in the day, like mid 2000s, when all those new atheism books were coming out, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Dan Dennett, all those books were out. Ayaan Hirsi Ali was also kind of in that conversation a lot because she was a former Muslim who had written a lot about how she left her religion, why she left her religion, and she belonged to a very radical version of Islam. She was the victim of female genital mutilation. It's something she has been advocating against ever since. So, like, when you have a very cruel version of an extremist version of any religion, you have someone who's the victim of that religion. When you have someone who's speaking out so powerfully against it, and frankly, when you have someone who's not an older white dude talking about the things that atheists were talking about, she was in the mix. She was talked about. She was very popular for a lot of those reasons. I read books like Infidel and Nomad. I didn't read Heretic. I think that came out later. But her books were bestsellers. And so not only is she an ex Muslim, she was very much someone who advocated for a world where you were free of religion. But I think a lot of people have not talked about her for a long time because she's been off the radar when it comes to atheism and anything related to church state separation for a while. So, I mean, I hadn't really given her much time or thought for several years. She kind of comes up here and there. She has a foundation that does stuff that, I don't know, some of it's fine, some of it seems weird. But anyway, then she puts out this essay, and the title of it is Why I Am Now a Christian. And I do want to go over a few parts of this because if you think about this for a second, if anyone, I don't care if it's her, but if anyone says, Why I Am Now a Christian, you are expecting to hear something about how this person found God, how this person now accepts the miracles of Jesus, how this person now believes in the resurrection. Because no matter how many different types of Christianity there are, they all have at least a couple of things in common, right? They believe in God. They believe in the specific version of the Jesus story that involves a resurrection, that this guy is coming back at some point. I don't know, some of those basic ideas. And I would love to know what she finds compelling about that myth. I want to know what it was about that compelled her to now, go from Islam to ex-Muslim to atheist to Christian. It's such a weird journey. But okay, I'm very curious. What is it that made her change her mind? And the thing is, and this is what pretty much everyone who read this essay has been commenting on, you won't find any of that in this essay. She doesn't talk about how she found God or had a late night epiphany. She was not like convinced she was wrong in the middle of a theological debate. There's just nothing in here telling you why you should become a Christian or how she became a Christian. If you handed this essay to a Christian apologist and said, "All right, I got your next like speech so you can convince people to believe in your God," they would be like, "This doesn't help." And what you end up getting in this essay is just a lot of stuff about like why Islam, all of it apparently, is evil and wokeness is bad because that's how these people talk. So let me get to the heart of what she wrote in this essay. It is a long essay, but let me get to the part I found really interesting. I'm not sure why the screen is going dark, but here you go. Here's the interesting little bit right here. So what changed? Why do I call myself a Christian now? Part of the answer is global. Western civilization is under threat from 3 different but related forces. We could stop right there. So we have a big problem with Western civilization being under attack. She's going to tell us the 3 reasons they're under attack, which, by the way, yada, 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 we need Jesus to solve or something. Okay. Why are we under attack? There is the resurgence of great power authoritarianism and expansionism in the form of I don't know why the screen's getting dark here. This is the website and not me. This is very weird. All right. Sorry for the darkness. I don't know what's happening there. But okay, we have the rise of authoritarianism and expansionism in the form of the Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Putin's Russia. Okay, yes, those are threats to the United States, but I'm not sure what that has to do with Christianity. Okay, what's the second threat? The rise of global Islamism, which threatens to mobilize a vast population against the West. Fine. I mean, I guess there are radical Muslims still out there. There are, terrorist groups, extremist groups out there. You know who speaks out against those groups? A hell of a lot of Muslims, that's for sure. So, okay, what's your third threat? The viral spread of woke ideology, which is eating into the moral fiber of the next generation. Like, right there, this is not a serious essay. If you're blaming the people who, fight for civil rights, fight for trans people, like, those are your problem, those are attacking the West, like, come on. And none of this has to do, like, she hasn't explained yet how Christianity is the solution to any of this. But later on, she does make an attempt, I guess. Here we go. The screen has lit up again. All right. We can't fight off these formidable forces unless we can answer the question, what is it that unites us? I guess all of us being Western civilization. What unites us to work against the woke? The response that God is dead seems insufficient, which is interesting because no one I know, and I know a hell of a lot of atheists, no one says God is dead. That's like what you write if you're writing a Time magazine cover from the 1960s. That's what you say if you're Kevin Sorbo acting in a God's Not Dead movie. No one else says it, though. All right, so God's Not Dead doesn't cut it. So, too, does the attempt to find solace in the rules-based liberal international order. So I guess like the United Nations doesn't cut it? I don't know. What does that even mean? But anyway, the only credible answer, I believe, lies in our desire to uphold the legacy of the Judeo-Christian doctrine. Which, oh my God, of all the things that are supposed to unite us, when has Christianity or Judeo-Christian anything ever been a thing that unites all of us? It's never been a thing that unites us all. Who says that? What does that even mean? And also, let's say you thought Judeo-Christianity was somehow true, which it's not. Even if you thought it united us, what does that have to do with I'm now a Christian? Why would that make you believe in the supernatural and miracles and Jesus coming back to life after he was dead for days? Like, those two things do not match up. It doesn't make any sense. Ayaan Hirsi Ali goes on to write here, I have come to realize that Russell, Bertrand Russell, the philosopher, and my atheist friends failed to see the wood for the trees, which is not how that line goes, but okay. The wood is the civilization built on the Judeo-Christian tradition. I don't know. Apparently, without Jesus, our society would not function. Without the Judeo-Christian tradition, we would not have the society we have, which again is weird because there are plenty of countries in the Western world who are not Christian It's not a Christian majority. Most people are either atheistic or non-theistic, or they don't think about religion. They're also fighting some of the same existential threats in the world. So what the hell is she talking about? None of this makes any sense. And the weird thing is, she's someone whose books, like, I don't know, back in the day, I did find them compelling. And this is just word salad. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. By the way, in that entire essay, the word Jesus never comes up. She makes one mention of Christ, where she says Christ's teaching implied not only a circumscribed role for religion as something separate from politics, it also implied compassion for the sinner and humility for the believer, which I guess is a way of saying Christianity has some good ideas, but guess what? They're not unique to Christianity. And the things she just mentioned have nothing to do with the supernatural stuff that most of us in the rational world reject. So again, that's fine. Plenty of humanists also believe in second chances and humility and forgiveness and separation of church and state. Like, what are you talking about there? One weird thing she also brings up is she says atheism failed to give her an answer to a simple question. What is the meaning and purpose of life? Like, she couldn't answer that question. Atheists could not answer that question. And I feel like anyone who spent any time thinking about atheism would say, well, there is no answer. There's no like one standard answer to that question. We all give ourselves meaning to life. We all give ourselves a purpose. There isn't one answer. The answer is certainly not what religious people think it is, whether it's to like glorify God or something else, but you can find your own meaning and purpose. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's your career or a hobby or something that gives you that you are passionate about. But there isn't a stock answer to that question. So if atheism failed to give it to her, what does she want? Does she want an answer just handed to her on a silver platter? And does it not matter if that answer is based in the facts? It's a weird thing. Um, if you're wondering, well, now that she is a Christian, what is the meaning and purpose of life? How would she answer that question? Too bad you won't get an answer from her because it's not in the essay. So you have an essay that's just like, I have changed my mind for rational reasons. I'm going to lay out the beginning of my thought process and then never finish the thought and then just drop the mic for no reason whatsoever. Maybe the funniest thing in this entire essay, she wrote, it's just a line that shows up at the very end of it. Here, let me show you this one. The lessons I learned from my years with the Muslim Brotherhood was the power of a unifying story embedded in the foundational texts of Islam to attract, engage, and mobilize the Muslim masses. Unless we offer something as meaningful, which is a story, but it doesn't have to be it could be a work of fiction, apparently. I fear the erosion of our civilization will continue. Unfortunately, there is no need to look for some new age concoction of medication and mindfulness. Christianity has it all. All of it. Christianity has everything she's looking for. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. I feel like she's like a lot of Christian apologists. She is using a lot of words to say very little, but then acting like she said everything. And there's nothing there. She also says that people who don't believe in God are, quote, capable of believing in anything. Like, we're the gullible ones. Like, those of us who live in reality are more susceptible to conspiracy theories than people who believe in the supernatural. That's not true. She also treats Christianity in this essay as if Christians are somehow enlightened. She actually writes in there, unlike Islam, Christianity outgrew here, let me show you this. Outgrew its dogmatic stage. I want to repeat that because it's insane. Unlike Islam, Christianity outgrew its dogmatic stage. She says it became increasingly clear, yada, yada, about Christ's teaching. I've already mentioned that. Imagine living in the United States right now and thinking Christianity has outgrown its dogmatic stage. We are right now under the threat of Christian nationalism. The Speaker of the House is an avowed Christian nationalist. There are a lot of people in power who are Christian nationalists. If Donald Trump wins re-election, he's going to staff his entire administration and the judiciary with Christian nationalists. And we know what that looks like. Abortion rights, those are gone. You can bet LGBTQ rights, same-sex marriage will be on the chopping block. In theory, interracial marriage is on the chopping block under the same legal reasoning. So to the idea that she's no longer a Muslim, but she is a Christian because Christianity is not dogmatic, like, where have you been? This is what happens when your brain is broken because you work for right-wing think tanks like she has for several years. Like, it's amazing that she just totally overlooks how conservative Christians in the US have hijacked the faith. Maybe they're not martyrs, maybe they're not like suicide bombers, but they are harmful. They do cause harm to other people because they want their batshit crazy views enshrined in the law, and that does hurt women, that does hurt people of color, that does hurt LGBTQ people. Like, it's just so messed up. We are not better off because the kind of Christianity practiced by zealots is now embraced by her. And here's the thing, like, it would be unfair for anybody to say that all Christianity is one thing. There are plenty of progressive Christians who are fantastic. I would vote for them. They support church-state separation. They rail against Christian nationalism. They're great. They're wrong on the religion thing, but they're great. But also, she's making the same mistake. You know, one of the criticisms against Ayaan Hirsi Ali in her earlier books is that she seems to ascribe the beliefs of Islamic extremists to the world's like 1.9 billion Muslims. And that's unfair because plenty of Muslims have different takes on the theology there. They don't all believe the same stuff. And now she's equating like Christianity as if Christianity is one thing. And she's saying all of that is good. And it's like, no, there are plenty of Christians who are bad. There are plenty who are good. It's religion. It's malleable. You can make it whatever you want to make it. But she's making the same mistake, which is she's painting an entire group of people with a broad brush, and it's still irresponsible and it's still thoughtless. She actually did this in her most recent book called Pray. I read a review. I did not read the book, but I read a review of the book that said she finds stories of individual Muslim immigrants who commit heinous crimes, and by suggesting those stories are broadly representative, uses them to justify curtailing the opportunities afforded to the whole group. Like, that seems pretty damning right there. Like, she's callously written about people whom she disagrees with. That's kind of a hallmark of her whole public image. And now she just seems to expect everyone to nod our heads in agreement as she explains her new religion. Why? Why should we? When has she ever earned the benefit of the doubt here? I know there was a time when a lot of atheists, new atheists, whatever, were all gung-ho against Islam, especially after 9/11. Sam Harris kind of leading the charge there. But if there's one thing we've learned from the way they talked about it, it's that there isn't one Islam. And you have to be careful with how you say true Islam is this, because there is no one version of any religion. It's unfair to say, well, if you were a real Muslim or Christian, you would believe X, Y, or Z, because if they're the ones saying that's not true, then nothing you say has any validity to them. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, though, again, I had not paid too much attention to her over the past several years, but it is worth pointing out that she has spent years now kind of going down that red-pilled, right-wing rabbit hole. She's written other essays for that same website. Here's another essay. Let me bring this up again here. She's written another essay for the same Unheard website. This is what she wrote. Do we need a trans Olympics? Because she can't stand that a trans swimmer might compete in a professional competition. So, like, basically, she's using her profile, her platform, to just spout these anti-trans things. And by the way, I should point out, I think there are legitimate discussions to be had about, what should be what should be allowed in professional athletics when it comes to transgender people competing in them. You know who should make those decisions? the experts in that field. I'm sure the people running the competitions have a vested interest in maintaining athletic parity. Don't ask me about it. Ask the people they bring on. Ask the experts in gender, sexuality, hormones, whatever. Ask those people. I don't know. I bet you Ayaan Hirsi Ali is not an expert at it. She's also written another essay for the exact same website. This is another one she wrote. The Year the West Erased Women. They're all gone now. I don't know if you all knew that, but there are no women anywhere in the West. You know why? Because trans people exist, apparently. She's also, by the way, she's done video essays for PragerU, the right-wing crazy conspiracy YouTube channel that is now part of the education curriculum in Oklahoma and Florida, I believe. She has made videos for them. One of them in particular, I want to quote you from. I'm going to share this right here. This is one she made, and it is called What Radical Islam and the Woke Have in Common. And this is an excerpt from this video. Read through this. It's appalling. The two ideologies have distinctive rituals. Islamists shout Allah Akbar and death to America. The woke shout Black Lives Matter and I can't breathe. And those are apparently the same thing. If you say black people shouldn't be harassed and killed by the police, that's apparently to her the same thing as shouting death to America. Who knew? I don't know. She also says Islamists pray to Mecca. The woke take the knee. Again, just because you can rhetorically frame it like that does not make them equivalent. Ayaan Hirsi Ali needs an editor. Both like burning the American flag. What? Both take offense at every opportunity and demand not just apologies, but concessions. Yeah, what type of concessions? One wants to murder your family just for the hell of it to advance their religious agenda. The other thinks people deserve civil rights and justice and basic human decency. Islamism invades against blasphemy. Wokeism wants to outlaw hate speech, in quotation marks, which give us some examples. I'm sure that would help out. Islamists use the word Islamophobia to silence critics. The woke do the same with racism. Like, calling out racism is not a problem, because here's the difference. We can talk about certain people. Like, I am all for the idea that criticism of Islam is not the same as being against Muslims. I think there is a place to criticize religion, criticize Islam. It's fine. Not all criticism of Islam is Islamophobia. So we should call that out when people misuse that word. But my God, if you think like woke people using the word racism is unfair, because guess what? There is a lot of racism out there. You're insane. So that's a real video she actually made. That's what Ayaan Hirsi Ali has been up to for the past several years. And it's so disappointing for me personally, because I thought she was someone who has and does. She valiantly fights against female genital mutilation. She advocates for women trying to leave extremist Islam. That's fine. That's good. I hope she keeps doing that. But, and by the way, she's done all this with numerous threats to her own life, which is extremely courageous. But if you think she is now a voice of courage, you are wrong. She's just another right-wing outrage propagandist acting like the people fighting against oppression are no different from the extremists who perpetuate it. She has spoken about this with Tucker Carlson, who is another propagandist. She also pointed out to Tucker Carlson that because there are actual women in parts of the world who are truly oppressed, and she's right about that, she said because of that, black people, gay people, trans people in the US should shut the hell up and celebrate how good they have it. Which, just because people in other parts of the world are actually suffering discrimination and misogyny doesn't mean everything's perfect over here and people who are oppressed and discriminated against just shut up about it. It's a very Richard Dawkins, Dear Muslima vibe to it all. Like, apparently no one's allowed to complain about anything because other people in other parts of the world have it worse. Like, you can do both things at once. You can complain about injustice there. You can complain about injustice over here. I think the wild thing about this whole essay, she did not convert because of Christ. She converted because of the culture wars. She just thinks conservative Christianity, I guess, is a better tool to use to fight Islam. And like, who hates Islam? Ex-Muslims really don't like Islam, and conservative Christians really don't like Islam. And conservative Christians don't know a lot about Islam, but they also don't like brown people, and those two things kind of go hand in hand. She found a common ally because they have a shared enemy. But she didn't convert to Christianity because anything is true about Christianity. One tweet put it well. Quote, they're pretending to be her. And they said, I am unable to justify my right-wing positions without also affirming a religion. And this one is far nicer than my old one. I think that's a good just summary of it. And you know what? Christians can have her. I'm done with her. I should have been done with her a long time ago. I think she contrarian so damn hard she made it all the way back to the other side. And I have heard, by the way, last thing I'll say about this. I have seen some people say she did this for money. Like, there's probably something in this for her. It's a lucrative thing to say you will just suddenly become Christian. I don't necessarily buy that. However, she's written a lot of memoirs. And I think if her well of personal anecdotes has dried up by now, this conversion gives her something new to talk about and write about. And it's different. So, like, you don't have to go to her to talk about Islam anymore. You could talk to her about Jesus, and that opens the door to a lot more people who might want to chat with her about it or write a book about it. I don't know. It's sad. It's disappointing. Honestly, given the path she's been going down for several years, probably longer. She worked with the right-wing think tank back when she was writing her first books. But given that path, this should not surprise anyone. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. If there are any questions, happy to discuss them right now. I should have said this up front, but if you want to, you are free to do super chats. Please, let me do this now. I forgot to do it at the beginning. You could support the channel by going here, patreon.com/Hemant. And you can always leave a super like and you'll get your question answered for sure. But yeah, what questions do we have right now? I love it when Christians convert and don't cite any scripture, instead get mad at liberals. Seriously, like, come on, give us a reason. At least we can make fun of the reason. You're just yelling out woke and acting like that's an argument. It doesn't work. It didn't work for Ron DeSantis. Why would it work for her? I don't know. That's weird. She just wants attention now, doesn't present a compelling statement. And this is what I'm trying to wrap my head around. She didn't suffer for lack of attention. She's been doing plenty of interviews. In fact, a lot of the stuff she wrote in that essay about Christianity, she said in like a panel discussion a couple of weeks ago. You know who else was on that panel? Jordan Peterson. So she's surrounded herself with conspiracy theorists for a while, and there's plenty of attention to be had when you just surround yourself by crazy people. Ask Sam Harris. You can always do interviews with people who are insane. There's always a steady stream of those people. What's she doing? It feels like she's talking less about Christianity as a religion, but again, instead as a cultural framework. I'm not saying I agree, but that rather this seems to make a little more sense. You know what, Spencer? I think you are right. I think she is following cultural Christianity, and the version of it is a very conservative type of conservative Christianity. But here's the thing. She does not say why I am now allies with conservative Christians. She doesn't say that. She says she's Christian. She says she is now part of that religion. So if you're going to say that, then be honest about it. Then tell us why you converted. If she's a cultural Christian, or she thinks Christianity offers better tools to fight against Islam, then you should say, I'm still an atheist, but Christianity and like the Trump administration is a better weapon to use against the type of brown people I don't like. Like, just say that. That's fine. You can argue she's a cultural Christian now, but then we have to admit she's being dishonest in her essay. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt here and assume she's being honest with us by saying she's a Christian. but she didn't answer the question of why that is. So, like, something's a problem either way, right? So much of Christian nationalism seems to worship the mythology of American capitalism rather than doctrines. You know what? I don't think you're wrong about that. But here's the thing: if you're a Christian nationalist, if you're the David Barton sorts who spread lies about the founding fathers and that's your whole thing, yes, I think they worship this. I think they support and believe in this false version of American history that is closely aligned with conservative Christianity. But all of them, the Bartons, the right wing Charlies, whatever they are, they would all, and have done this, they would all make a case for why they believe in Jesus. They can do that. I don't know how strongly they believe in it, but they can all give you their testimony. Ayaan Hirsi Ali cannot. Based on that essay, anyway, she cannot. So, like, maybe she's a Christian nationalist supporting this vision, the false vision of this country. But again, that's not what she said. So she's lying then. All right, I'm going to move on. I feel like I should do something super light because there are other serious stories happening. And I'm going to share this with you. This is the weirdest hypothetical question I have ever seen. And now I have to share with all of you because I've spent way too much time thinking about the question. I know me just saying that, some of you already know where I'm going with this. Let me set this up before I share the question. There's a website called Quora where it has the reputation of people asking weird ass questions and then getting sometimes serious, sometimes weird answers back. It's like a worse, less organized version of Reddit. So here's the question that was posted on Quora and then screenshotted and shared with everybody. Let's all enjoy this one together. Imagine atheists. Imagine you're going skydiving with a Christian baby. Suddenly, the baby tells you he won't open his parachute unless you renounce atheism and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. What would you do? Let's go back to the beginning of that one. Because what? Atheists, imagine you're going skydiving with a Christian baby. Let's stop there. One, why are you going skydiving? Skydiving is weird. Two, why are you going skydiving with a Christian baby? Where did you get a baby from that's not yours, apparently? Did you swipe a baby, take it on the plane with you? Why is the baby Christian? I mean, listen, I criticized Richard Dawkins for a lot of things, but one thing he's right about is don't put a religious label on a child who isn't old enough to think about religion yet. There is no Christian baby. There's no Republican baby. There's just baby. So also, you're going skydiving with a baby. How do we know this baby is Christian? Did you steal it from a Christian family? Did they give it to you? This is very weird already. Suddenly, the baby tells you he won't open his parachute. Why is the baby talking? How does the baby talk? Where did it get that from? That seems like something worth pausing and thinking about. Why does the baby have its own parachute? If you're going skydiving with the baby, which I wouldn't skydive, I don't even know if you're allowed to go skydiving with the baby. Wouldn't you go in a tandem jump? Why does the baby get its own parachute? Does that mean we are throwing the baby out of the plane and assuming that at some point this baby with apparently working hands is going to do one of these and pull the ripcord halfway through the flight or whatever it is? I'm just I baby with the parachute. Trying to figure that out. Why is that happening? Who is the bad parent who put a parachute, strapped it onto the baby, then handed the baby to a random atheist who was on their way to a plane? And then this baby poses a theological challenge to you. He's not going to open his parachute unless you renounce atheism and accept Jesus. Couple options here. I guess where they want me to go with this is to say, well, of course I have to save the baby, so I will lie to the baby and say I accept Jesus. First of all, why do I care about this baby? I just met this baby. For all we know, the atheist just kidnapped this baby. I have no allegiance to this baby. What do I care if the baby does not pull its ripcord? Then, even if I lied to the baby to save it, even if I said, you know what, baby, I do accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, then I push the baby out of the plane and assume the baby's going to pull the ripcord and save itself. Who cares? What does that mean? If you know I'm lying to you about accepting Jesus, and then like I know I'm lying about accepting Jesus, I would have to assume Jesus and God, and who are the same person, know that I'm lying about Jesus. So wouldn't everyone be on the same page and just say, this does not count? This is not an actual conversion. Ayaan Hirsi Ali had a more convincing conversion than me on this plane next to the baby I'm going to punch out of the plane. So if the baby asks this and I have like 2 seconds to answer, why does the baby think I'm going to be telling the truth and actually convert? This seems like a very bad way to finagle atheists into converting. It's just dumb. The question is dumb. The baby is dumb. What is the baby doing? How long do we get to think about the question, too? Like, do I get a second to think about it, or are we spending like 30 minutes on the plane here while I consider my options? Because the way this question is written, it makes it sound like we're already in free fall and the baby is asking it while we are jumping, and I have to make a split-second decision on this, and that's why I'm doing this. I have so many questions about the question that I can't get to the actual rhetorical question part of this because the question makes no sense. It's weird. I don't quite know what to do. I'm very curious what all of you would do. You know what? When I post this clip on YouTube, I'm going to leave your questions in here because I would really like to know what all of you are thinking about this baby challenge, because I have seen this. I saw this question a few days ago, and I have spent 23 and a half hours a day thinking about it. Not about what I would do, but about this baby with a parachute on a plane. I don't know. What do you guys think? What questions do you have about the question? Oh, thanks for the super chat, Olivia. I'm often on Quora, and these questions are a plague on it. You know what? Apparently, if you search on Quora for Christian baby, there's a whole universe of these kind of rhetorical questions, each one dumber than the last. It's a whole genre. I did not know this was a thing until this week, and now I want to go through all of them. Maybe I should just do that every week now. I don't know, but that's why you love Quora. The old parachute baby fallacy. An oldie but a goodie. It's like the trolley problem, but with a baby and a parachute. I feel like John Mulaney needs to just make this a whole bit. Who is giving their baby to strangers to jump out of a plane? Listen, all of these Christian parents who would do this sort of thing where they want atheists to convert, they all have 17 kids. They're not going to miss one. They probably have a new one just waiting in the wings. So they're just like, you know what? I got a few others to take care. Here, atheist, take this one. Don't worry about the backpack it has on. That'll come in handy later. Just take it, go on a plane. We'll see what happens. Wink. Like, it's probably the Duggars. I don't know. They've had some problems. If you think about it, Christianity is based on a deity sacrificing their child. So I guess it made sense in the person's mind. See, this is why you can't have the Abraham and Isaac scenario. You can't have God sacrificing Jesus. When you do that, it just sets a precedent. And now all Christian parents want to give their baby to an atheist. What would you do? At this point, I'm still pushing the baby out of a plane because I'm not going through a theological conundrum. I'm already scared of jumping out of the plane. You think I'm concerned about what that baby's going to do? The baby's not me. The baby does not matter. I'm just jumping. I do not have time to think about like my religious beliefs at that time. The question says a lot about the person asking it, says Spencer. You can very easily tell what the person asking the question really thinks about atheists. Apparently, the only thing that's stopping us from converting is saying some magic words like, yeah, I accept Jesus. That's it. That does the trick. I said it, therefore I am now a Christian too. It also tells you, I think this is what Spencer is getting at, it doesn't take thought in these people's minds. You don't actually have to spend time reading the Bible or thinking about what that might mean for your life. Apparently, a baby holding a gun to your head, a metaphorical gun to your head, is all that it takes. And if you, under duress and pressure, just say, I believe in Jesus, that's all it takes. You don't need to do any further thought. Christianity is a religion you can convert to in half a second under pressure. And that's it. Yeah. So if that's what they think about atheists, that's weird. And if that's what they think about Christianity, what does this tell us about their faith, too? My God. What else we got there? It's a weird question. Maybe we should do these again soon. There are many weird ones. Let's talk about something else. All right, let's talk about, hey, while we're speaking of Christians on a plane, let us talk about a singer who decided to hijack a plane basically by singing gospel music. And I'm going to play this clip for you, and because I don't, for two reasons, I'm going to keep my face right here while we're watching this clip so I can talk through it. But here's the setup. There is a gospel singer named Bobby Storm, and she posted a 4-minute video online where she was singing gospel music on a plane, doing what the Lord wants her to do. And what's also weird about it is she doesn't just sing. There is a flight attendant asking her not to be that disruptive because they haven't taken off yet. The flight attendant has a job to do. And here she is saying, well, I got to sing. God wants me to sing. And so she tries to find new ways to just sing her music. The other thing you should know about her is she, as part of a gospel choir, just got nominated for 2 Grammy Awards. That is real. One of them is Best Gospel Album. That's a real category. The other is a category you've never heard of, and it's not on TV, and it doesn't matter. But she was nominated for 2 Grammys, so now she thinks she is entitled to sing about this stuff. And because StreamYard doesn't allow me to pause the video, I'm going to play it and I'll talk over it as we're going through it. But okay, here's Bobby Storm's video on TikTok, and I'll talk as we are going through it.
I'm starting right now on the billboard. I can sit down and I'll sit down, but the seatbelt signs off. The seatbelt signs off. It's not a disturbance once you're here. It's right here, babe.
Okay, have a seat.
I am. I'm gonna have a seat. Okay, so watch me bless him. So I used to sing on planes a long time ago. I just found out I'm up for 2 Grammys. My very first time, you guys. My name is Bobby Storm, and I'm up for 2 Grammys.
They're very proud of her Grammys.
My song is out on all platforms. It's called We Can't
Look
Forget
at the flight
Like
attendant.
McDonald cleared it.
The flight attendant
Warren
is
G
serious.
is on the original record as well. It's with Regulators. I want to share this with you guys. I wanted to do it when I first got on the plane, but I was like, I haven't done this in a while. I've gotten to the next status, so.
Are you able to be quiet?
But they're enjoying it. So while we're sitting here,
They are not
I'm
enjoying
not
it.
enjoying it. So I'm asking you, can you be quiet?
Okay, well,
that's
I find that up.
That's a yes or no answer, please.
Am I gonna go to jail if I don't?
Can you please answer my question? Are you willing and able to be quiet right now?
I'm doing what the Lord is telling me to do.
I'm asking you a question, yes or no. I'm your flight leader. I need you to follow my instruction.
Okay.
My instruction for you to answer my question. Are you able to be quiet
What
right
do you
now?
guys think?
I'm asking you, ma'am.
I'm asking you guys.
It's
What do
not
you
a
guys
vote.
think?
Okay. If you're not able to follow my instruction, you will not be taking this flight.
Ah, okay.
Are you
that's
able
what I
to
was
be
asking.
quiet?
If that's the case, then that's fine. If you were the
So that's
person
yes?
in charge of it all.
I'm your flight leader, yes.
If you're the person in charge
Okay.
of it all, then that's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Thank
right.
you.
So I'll sing it on the low for y'all in the back, if that's okay. All right. So the song is called We Can't Forget 'Em. All right. And you can download it. I don't know the issue. No one else has ever had an issue, but it's Father, I thank you for each day in my life. I realize.
I am going to stop at this point because now she just starts singing. But I hope you all could hear that. I have no idea. I have no idea how volume works on this thing. I'll figure it out. But just to recap some of the stuff that happened there, here's this flight attendant trying to do his job by telling her to take her seat, keep her voice down. She's creating a disturbance on the plane before takeoff. And what does she do? First, she ignores him and just says, "You guys, I won 2 Grammys." That doesn't justify disobeying the people in charge of the plane. Also, come on, one of those Grammys doesn't count. It's not a real category. Give it a break. But okay, fine. Let's give her credit for winning a Grammy. You got a celebrity on the flight. We can all applaud that for half a second. And now let's move on. But she doesn't let that happen. She wants to be the main character on this plane. She wants to be the center of attention. At one point, you heard her. She even just turns around from the flight attendant and asks the other people on the plane, "What do you guys think?" As if this is up for a popular vote. Like, who cares? Even if every single person wanted to hear you sing, the flight attendant has a job to do. So let the flight attendant do his job. It doesn't matter what the people want. They don't know how to fly the plane. Let the guy do it. And then as soon as the flight attendant walks away, she launches into a song and more Jesus talk. The New York Times had an article about this, and they put this into context of what was happening. I want to see if I can share this with you here. There we go. In one of the social media videos, Miss Storm said she had sung on many flights before, and God had called her to sing on this recent one. She said that the flight had boarded, started to taxi, and returned to the gate because of maintenance issue. After the plane returned to my gate, she said, "It was time for me to follow through with my mission." And she started to sing. Think about that. This flight was boarded. I don't know what time it boarded, but it was boarded. They started to do like the movement of the plane to start taking off. Then they had to return to the gate because of maintenance issues, which means everyone on this plane is already pissed off. They're already delayed. They're already like, someone's sitting in the middle seat here. It's like, oh my God, could this get any worse? And now this lady starts singing. Like, how bad is that? Spirit Airlines? No, it's Delta. But can you imagine? You thought crying babies with parachutes on a plane were annoying. This lady can't control herself. She thinks the one thing everyone needs to hear on the plane is her loud voice singing a song that, by the way, most of these people would never pay tickets for when they're off the plane. She showed up to someone else's place of work and demanded they bow down to her. Why? Because maybe in a couple months she's going to get an award or two, maybe. And it's not even a solo album. Come on, give it a break. Like, so when she turns around and asks these people, "What do you guys think?" there isn't a response, not an audible one. And that makes sense to me because I think other passengers, even if I was sitting on that flight, the last thing I want to do is be a part of this lady's story. Like, I don't want to go viral on TikTok just because you have a God complex. So I'm not surprised that they chose silence rather than saying, "Yeah, lady, shut up." But you have to think some of them wanted to take a nap, wanted to get some work done, or just enjoy the hour or two they might have to be on this flight and they're away from the other annoying people in their lives. So after all this happened, she was not kicked off the plane, despite the threat of the flight attendant. She was not punished in any meaningful way for her actions. There's no indication that there was any further incident on the flight. She said in a later TikTok that Delta called her to apologize. But we don't know that they apologized. We don't know what their conversation was all about. She just kind of held up a phone and said, "Look, Delta called me, and I don't trust her enough to think that her explanation of why they called her was legit." She also said in that follow-up video that she doesn't want this man, talking about the flight attendant, to be reprimanded. As if anyone thought the flight attendant deserved to be reprimanded. That guy was doing his job. She was absolutely making it worse. So, like, it's just arrogance on top of arrogance. I think the one thing that made me really happy about all this is I saw the post she made on Instagram. I saw the post she made on TikTok where she shared this video. And then I read the comments, and all of those comments are overwhelmingly they have the same reaction I do. I'm showing some of them to you here. This is one of the most egotistical things I've ever seen. You think because you're Grammy nominated that rules don't apply to you and the plane is your stage? Work on that ego, sis. Someone else. Imagine the entitlement of thinking you're the only one with something that can bless folks, and it happens to be in an airplane where they have no choice but to hear you because they can't go anywhere. This is wildly out of pocket, sis. You held these people hostage and used God's name in a manipulative manner. That man was just doing his job and you were being disruptive, period. The plane is not your stage or billboard to market your work. And then my favorite, oh my God, you are not the main character. Sit down and be quiet on a plane. It is basic courtesy to everyone around you. I don't care how beautiful your voice is. Other passengers didn't pay for a concert. They paid for a peaceful flight. Respect their space. Yes, I love that. So all these people said it. She has no self-awareness. She did not respond to any of those comments. But I want you to just think about a couple things. Her stunt, and it was a stunt, it would never be tolerated if the person we were talking about was not a Christian. Imagine if a Muslim was like, hey, everyone, I just got nominated for Grammys. Also, I'm Muslim, and I want to take over this flight and sing for you all. That person would not have been able to get through, past the word Muslim in that conversation, much less 4 minutes of smug belligerence. And by the way, this is not the only time this has happened. There was a couple of years ago. I'll show you this. No, not a couple of years ago. I think it was like last year. This was something that went viral on Twitter. Imagine you get on a plane and you have to listen to this. I'm not going to play the clip for you, but it's a Christian with a guitar who gets up in the middle of the aisle and just starts playing music. And you see a lot of the same reactions like, I don't like this, but I also don't want to create a scene of my own, so I guess I'll just deal with it. And I go back to the question I asked in our last segment. What does it say about the faith of these people that the only time they think they can share the gospel is when they have a literally captive audience that cannot escape? Why can't you sing to people who voluntarily listen to you? Why can't you talk to them? Why can't you sing to them? It's because their message must suck, that this is the place that they decide they're going to spread their message. And also, passenger silence is not consent. I know conservative Christian churches have a problem with consent and they don't know what it is. But also, silence on a plane, that's not an enthusiastic yes. What are you doing? It's messed up. And I feel like the only thing Bobby Storm here accomplished is reminding people of why they dislike and avoid Christians just like her when they have the choice to do it. So dumb idea. I wish she would get in trouble. I don't think she committed a crime other than being annoying. But also, if she is disrupting the plane and not listening to the flight attendant, I feel like that violates some policy. She should be reprimanded for that, don't you think? All right, what questions do we have? I'm going to grab a drink here really quick. Give the gospel singer a parachute and a baby. Right on. Have the baby ask her a weird question and then let her sit in silence as she ponders the question for like 3 days in a row, like I have. Yes, if the flight crew tells you to do something, do it. Please. Why would you disobey the people who are in charge of the plane? Again, they're just trying to do their job. They're on a schedule. I don't even, correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't even think those flight attendants get paid until the plane is in the air. And they can't take off, partly because this lady's singing. I don't know if I'm right about that, but I feel like I've read that before. If I was on a flight where someone did that, I'd beg them to remove me from the plane. Seriously. People, I hope someone there on the plane wanted to speak up, but just felt like they didn't want to. I don't know. I feel like I would not be the person who would want to speak up in that situation. Just because, again, I'm on a plane. I can ignore crying babies. I can ignore annoying Christians. I'm just going to fall asleep anyway. But it is annoying. It's the lack of self-awareness that surprises me there. Like, no one needs... I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad a good thing happened to you. Not everyone cares or needs to know about it. I'm sure other people on that plane had something they wanted to brag about too, and they did not. How hilarious would it be if it was Spirit Airlines? Would anyone be surprised? I don't think so. I'm flying on JetBlue soon. I feel like I'm totally gonna face this, aren't I? Yes, with all the things going on in the world, God's most important thing is one lady singing on a plane. That's the only way you could spread the gospel. It's on a plane with either a lady with no self-awareness and a loud voice or baby with a parachute. Those are the only two ways. That's how Jesus said it. I'm going to move to a different story, a happy story, a very, very interesting story, because this week, the Satanic Temple had a massive legal victory that is worth talking about, especially if you don't know this story. So I'm going to try to back up for a second before I get to the good news. And this does end with good news. I want to share with you this poster because this is what the Satanic Temple was trying to do in the Saucon Valley School District. Was it earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year. They wanted to start after school Satan Club at the Saucon Valley Middle School in Pennsylvania. And they said this in February. They said they wanted to hold meetings. And the only reason, this is important, the only reason they wanted to start this after school Satan Club is because Christians in the community had started a good news club, basically to try to indoctrinate kids in Christianity. So the Satanists came along and said, all right, well, we want to play by the same rules. We want to start a club too. And if you look at this poster, and I know it's hard to read the tiny font, but what it says is, think about what they do here. It's at the bottom over Saucon Valley Middle School. Science projects, community service projects, puzzles and games, nature activities, not mature activities, nature activities, arts and crafts, snacks. They are not interested in proselytizing Satanism because, of course, as I'm sure you all know, the Satanic Temple does not believe in a literal Satan or satanic beliefs or Satanism or anything. These ass clubs are basically, they are altruistic, humanitarian clubs, science clubs. They're trying to help kids out. They are not interested in indoctrination. Their actual description says they focus on free inquiry and rationalism, the scientific basis for which we know what we know about the world around us. It's like a science club with a devilish twist. So they had these posters. They were ready to start their club. But in February, even after the school board approved their use of the space in the middle school, and the way these clubs work in the middle school is maybe a parent is interested in starting the group, they get permission from the school board, they get the space, and then it's voluntary, of course. But what happened in February is that after this was approved and everyone knew about it, someone called the district and left a voicemail threatening to cause harm if Satanists were allowed to meet there. That's horrible. And district officials were really worried, so they canceled all after-school activities that afternoon, and then they canceled school and activities the next day. That's how disruptive this threat was. And the superintendent contacted police. But here's where it took a really messed up turn. After they realized we don't think this is a legit threat or anything like that, what happened is that the school district blamed that caller and that threat on the Satanic Temple. Look at this headline. Saucon schools shut down, blamed on Satan Club related threats, schools to reopen Thursday. Okay, that part's fine. They blamed it on the threat. I'm trying to scroll down here to see if I can find the thing. I apologize. I thought I had this up there. But basically, as this was all happening, yes, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Let me share this with you instead. This is what happened. With chaos, threat that canceled classes, Saucon Valley bars the after-school Satan Club. The school district basically punished the Satanic Temple for what some deranged anonymous dude did on a phone and threatened the school. So what did they do? The superintendent said the district would review the Satan Club's use of the facility, which is weird because The Satanic Temple did not phone in the threat. They did not put kids in danger. And they only launched their club in response to a Christian club at the school. And what happened is, after the district reviewed the situation, the superintendent said she had rescinded approval. I'm going to show you this here. She had rescinded approval for the Satanic Club. Look at this. As a result of this violation, the educational programming and activities of the district has been significantly impacted, and it has caused unequivocal disruption to our district's daily operations. Right, we get it. It was bad. Our community has experienced chaos. Our students, staff, and teachers have had to endure a threat to their safety and welfare. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know where this went. Where did it go? Ah, yes, here we go. And at the beginning of this article, an extracurricular club calling itself the Satanic Temple has been barred from using school district facilities. That's the part that blew my mind. After all this chaos, the school district punished the Satanic Temple for the threat that had nothing to do with the Satanic Temple. They were being punished for what some dude did. And now, the unintended consequence of all this is that the district basically had written up a blueprint for other, Christian terrorists to follow anytime there was an atheist or satanic club meeting at a local school. All you have to do is secretly phone in a threat, mention the non-Christian group in your voicemail, because that's what that anonymous caller did. He said, I'm going to do something because the Satanic Temple is being there. And if you do that, you can just watch the chaos unfold. Like, that's a horrible precedent to set, because the school district is punishing the Satanists, which is what that caller wanted. The school district could have said, we are working with law enforcement to ensure the safety of everybody in our schools. Extra security will be provided whenever students meet after school, certainly for the after-school Satan Club. But this district said, nope, none of that. We're just going to punish the Satanists and hope this all goes away. So even though the Satanic Temple was like, you can't do that, this is a horrible idea, and even though the ACLU said the same thing, the district did not budge. So what happened? The Satanic Temple filed a lawsuit against the Saucon Valley School District. And they basically said, the school district's refusal to grant the Satanists equal access to school facilities give a heckler's veto to those who dislike the group's religious viewpoint. And one of the other things, like, I'm going to skip over some details because they also claimed, the school district claimed, the Satanists didn't follow our policies. But every time they mentioned what the Satanists didn't do, there was always a logical reason for it. So I'm going to skip over that stuff. And I should also tell you, the dude who made the phone call, they eventually caught him. He was arrested. And the lawsuit even pointed out there's no evidence that this guy might have refrained from his criminal actions if only the Satanic Temple had done things differently. Like, the dude just wanted to stop them from meeting. But the school district wouldn't budge. So there was a lawsuit. And the bottom line is that back in March, like a month after all this happened, there was a federal judge who said the district has to allow the Satanists to meet at the location this school year. Like, you cannot block them from meeting. They followed all the rules. The judge said you have to allow it. The judge even said, when confronted with a challenge to free speech, the government's first instinct must be to forward expression rather than quash it, particularly when the content is controversial or inconvenient. So that's interesting. He said the district had no right to ban the Satanists from meeting, and that suppressing the Satanic Temple was not constitutionally permissible. So that was the ruling that happened a few months ago. And the reason I bring all this up is there is an update on that case, and it's glorious. And it's that they finally figured out how to settle this case. And the school district has now said, we'll settle the case. We will not admit any wrongdoing, but we're going to give $200,000 to the Satanists for their legal bills, to pay the legal bills. They've decided they don't want to appeal this. They don't want to keep fighting it. They know they're in the wrong. And to to end things for good. They gave, I think, $1 in damages to the Satanists, literally $1. But the school's insurance provider will pay $200,000 to the attorneys involved on the Satanist side. And the only consolation for the district, I guess, is that they don't have to admit wrongdoing, but they do have to admit there was a constitutional injury resulting from the district's decision. I don't quite grasp the distinction there. One thing I would also point out that I found interesting is that in addition to all of this, this whole controversy became an issue in the school board elections this year that they already had because community members were so angry that the school board was fighting this case because it was a lost cause. Voters seem to be thinking this is about free speech, equal access. The Satanists didn't do anything wrong. Why is the school board trying to block them from meeting? Why are you allowing the ACLU to sue you when you're in the wrong? And in fact, 4 school board members, incumbents, lost their seats. They were voted out. This wasn't the only reason, but this was part of the reason people wanted to unseat them. And that's a big deal. Lucian Greaves, who's the Satanic Temple's co-founder, he told me, perhaps it is time to stop wasteful public crusades that seek to unconstitutionally limit our civil liberties, and also to respect the choices of non-Christian parents too. So again, I think he's right. Officials in this district were warned how this would play out. They chose to listen to the wrong people, and now they're going to pay the price. Like, I know their insurance provider is paying out the $200,000, but their insurance premiums are probably going to go up. So that's good. That's the way this should have ended, but it shouldn't have taken this long. What questions we got here? For all intents and purposes, the school district gave in to the demands of a terrorist. They did at the time. Thankfully, the courts are like, you shouldn't have done that. Bad idea. So just dumb all around. Yes, that's what I do when I want people knowing I did nothing wrong. I pay them large sums of money. Correct. The school district doesn't have to admit it's wrong. They just, where did all that money go? They don't know, whatever. Just even the $1 they had to pay out just as a symbolic victory for the Satanists there. All they had to do was listen to the Satanists and this would have been over. They did not. I'm going to jump to this next story, which involves a Catholic church in Florida. I'm going to tell you, this story involves a woman who is apparently unfamiliar with some of the beliefs of the Catholic Church. And I think a lot of people are ignorant about a lot of religious beliefs. I'm not holding that against her. But basically, let me tell you who I'm talking about here. The woman's name is Katie Ray, and she is someone who lives in a community in Florida. She does a lot of motivational speaking, a lot of life coaching. She wants to inspire you to be your best self, like eat, pray, love. What is it? Love, laugh, live, all, whatever. It's all that stuff. It's not for me. I kind of roll my eyes when I hear that sort of stuff, but whatever. Good for her. I'm glad she has her thing. I'm glad she's passionate about it. It's hardly a thing to be upset about. So she's hosting, apparently, a big conference next January. It's called Celebrate You. And she decided, like last year, she wanted to rent out a gymnasium that was owned by a Catholic church in the area. The Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church in Dunedin. I don't know how to pronounce the city's name, but she rented out the space. She signed the paperwork. She gave them a down payment. Everything was fine. And why wouldn't it be? It's a secular event, but like if the church is renting out space, I don't think that would be it's not like they're renting it out to me. They're renting it out to some lady who wants to do motivational speaking. It's fine. But what happened is that like a week or two after she had given them the money for the down payment and started promoting her event and selling tickets, the church called her back and said they cannot accommodate her request and they returned the money. Why? Because they looked her up on social media and saw that she had been spending a lot of time promoting and talking about in vitro fertilization. Basically, this lady's story is that she was struggling to get pregnant, couldn't do it, and it was only through in vitro fertilization that she was able to use science and have a fertilized baby with her husband. and she now has 3 kids. And so she talks and boosts IVF all the time on social media. And so I'm going to show you a press release. She's very internet savvy. She's very publicity savvy. She actually issued a press release. Let me share this with you because there's a part in here. This is her and her family, Katie Ray and her family. And she says in here at one point, she was taken aback when the church canceled her thing. I was taken aback because my children were a beautiful collaboration between God, science, and the universe. And every day I look at them, my kids, I am so grateful they are with me. This specific annual event was created with the passion I have for everyone to embrace who they are and not compare or judge each other on their journeys. I was shocked that I could be kicked out of somewhere for deciding I wanted to fight to have children and utilize resources around me. So good for her. So, like I said, that's Katie Ray. That's what she was promoting. She was shocked that they were against IVF. But in case you're wondering, why does the church not like in vitro fertilization? The Catholic Church only supports pregnancies that involve one man, one woman, one bed, missionary style, no assistance, never any condoms, never any birth control. Like there's only one way to have sex, and it's the way priests imagine it would go, or something like that. And by the way, if you ever go to a Catholic hospital, they take this stuff seriously too. They will not help any women with infertility. They actually oppose any technique to achieve conception just by using like any other donors. They don't do sperm donation. They don't allow surrogates. They don't allow in vitro fertilization. And they say it's because it might involve the destruction of an embryo. And they say these things are all contrary to the covenant of marriage, the unity of the spouses, and the dignity proper to parents and the child. Which is, again, I would say that's weird. I get where they're trying to go when it comes to gay couples adopting a child or something. It's like, it's not your kid. That's not what God wants. Like, they're wrong and they're bigots. But I get the logic that they have. But in this case, in vitro fertilization, this is the lady and the husband like creating new life, which I heard is what the Catholic Church likes. But they're just doing it outside her body because she's infertile. And like, that seems like a wonderful mix of science and religion if you like children or whatever. She has had 3 kids. She talks about it all the time. Then you get to the point that why is the church looking her up on social media, finding out this stuff about her, and then punishing her for it? To be clear, they have the legal right to do it. This is private space owned by the church. They could say, you're brown, we don't like you, so we're not going to rent space to you. They have the legal right to do these sort of things if it follows their religious, strongly held religious beliefs. But here's a question I would like to know the answer to. Like, do they do this with other people? If I rented space from them for a secular event, not an atheist event, but just I want to celebrate my high school basketball team or something, would they look me up and say, well, we see you've posted some stuff on atheism? Or would they say, you don't seem like a problem, we don't need to do anything with you? What about people who have had abortions or paid for abortions but didn't brag about it online? What about people who support same-sex marriage, which the Catholic Church opposes? What about people who say, yeah, trans people are real and I support them, which the Catholic Church opposes? If you don't openly talk about this stuff on social media or something, then the Catholic Church wouldn't know your position on it. But then it sounds like they'd be fine renting to you if you had an abortion and were in a same-sex relationship, but you didn't talk about it. And that seems hypocritical. The only reason they knew this lady had used IVF is because they stalked her online and found her social media posts, even though she wasn't holding an event promoting IVF. It's just a thing in her life and who she is. One thing I also found amusing is that a local news outlet, like I said, Katie Ray is very savvy. She sent out a press release. She contacted local news media, and one channel covered her story, and they actually included this picture outside the church. And I want you to just take a look at the line at the very bottom of that sign at Our Lady of Lourdes Church. All are welcome. And I love that they included that because there's no asterisk. And it shows you just how hypocritical this church is, right? Everyone is not welcome. They just kicked out this lady for doing whatever. Like, they don't look into the marital records of people to see if they've been divorced. They punished her for holding a position that goes against Catholic doctrine. But again, you know who else goes against Catholic doctrine? Pretty much everyone in the pews on a given Sunday. Just to throw out some numbers here, 61% of Catholics in the United States support marriage equality. The Vatican doesn't. 61% of U.S. Catholics do. 76% say society should be accepting of homosexuality. 37% of U.S. Catholics acknowledge the existence of trans people. I know that's a low number, but it's still 37% higher than the Vatican wants it to be. But the Catholic Church won't kick out people for not agreeing to Catholic beliefs unless you're just kind of flaunting it, because they're hypocrites. They don't actually care. And in this case, the lady didn't even bring it to their attention. She wasn't protesting outside the church. She wasn't saying the Catholic Church needs to change its position. They just found her online, stalked her social media posts, and then used it against her. And listen, none of that's going to change unless decent Catholics who are in the church decide to walk away and stop giving the church its time and money. But a lot of Catholics don't have the courage or ability to do that. And in case you're wondering, Katie Ray is not going to file a lawsuit. She knows she would lose. Catholic Church has a right to do this. She acknowledges that. She did find another space to hold her event, so she's taken care of. I just think it's what I appreciate about her and of this story is that she is trying to raise awareness of this problem. She wants people to know about it because it's effed up in her mind, and she wants everyone else to know that too. And maybe they'll come to their senses as well. One last thing about Katie Ray. She said in another interview, she actually has a gay father, which she just finds interesting in the scope of this religion thing. And she also said she no longer goes to any church. I don't know if she's an atheist, but she says she doesn't go to church anymore, largely because so many of them discriminate instead of judging people for who they are. So kudos to her. I hope her event goes well. And thanks for highlighting the hypocrisy and cruelty of the Catholic Church. We can all do it. She did it very well. What other questions we got here right now while I get the next story here set up? All right, I'm going to move on to this next story. This involves a Christian father named Brad Briscoe. And here's how I came across this story. Earlier this month in November, early November, this guy named Brad, he steps in front of a Baptist church, Ballard Baptist Church in Kentucky, and he delivers. He's allowed to give a guest sermon for like 20 minutes. The pastor of the church says, our friend Brad here wants to talk to y'all for a little while, so I'm going to hand over the microphone to him. And Brad Briscoe proceeds to tell a 20-minute story where he's telling the congregation why they should be concerned about their local public school district. And I'm not going to play the video because it is very long and he's very boring. But I will tell you the highlights of his story. And I feel like I'm steel manning what he has said here. So this is the version of the story as he told it. He said, in September of last year, his 16-year-old daughter asked the family if her friend, a 17-year-old girl at the school, if she could stay with the family for a while because her family was going through some stuff. And the Briscoes basically said, yeah, sure, we want to help out your friend. They said it's not weird for their kids' friends to stay at their home, and he had no problem agreeing to it. So it's all good. The friend stays at their home. 6 months later, Brad Briscoe finds out that the two girls, his daughter and her friend, they had more than a friendship. He called it a romantic involvement. And their daughter denied it at first. She said, I'm not gay, but then she admitted they were in a relationship. And Briscoe could not handle that. They said same-sex relationships are not allowed in our house, not while you're living under our roof. And then they punished her for lying to them. They banned her from seeing her girlfriend And that goes over well with kids. And what he said, though, this is where the story took a strange turn. He said that in February, like 6 months later, several months later, he found out that a counselor at their girls' high school knew absolutely everything about our situation. And that counselor had been in touch with their daughter because the daughter had told the counselor all of this, poured her heart out to the counselor. And apparently the counselor said, "I can't believe your parents are punishing you for being gay." And the parents are like, "We didn't punish her for being gay. We punished her for lying to us about being gay." Apparently, the counselors told the girl she might want to consider getting emancipated from her parents, which seems like an unusual thing for a counselor to say. But also, that's a lot of hoops you got to jump through. And I think the counselor and the girl realize, yeah, that's not a feasible option there. The counselor also suggested developing a false child protective service order. Like, let's call the authorities and say your parents are abusing you or something, and they'll take the parents away, which again seems like a very weird thing for the counselor to do. But okay, that's what Brad Briscoe said. And then the coup de grace here, Briscoe said the counselor wanted his wife to lose her teaching job because she worked in the district and have their daughter move into the counselor's basement. And that the counselor urged their daughter to like bait the parents into yelling at her and saying damning things so that the girl could record her parents and use it as evidence for like CPS to take her parents away. And the way the dad knew all this is because his daughter, after realizing, the daughter, he said, heard the counselor or saw the counselor talking about, we can get your mom fired over this. And then the daughter came to her senses. And she realized, apparently, in his telling, that the counselor is not looking after my best interests. She's just trying to promote her liberal agenda. And the daughter revealed that she had been communicating with the guidance counselor through text messages. And the family has like 200 texts between the counselor and the daughter. That's how he found out what they were talking about. He also said before this revelation from their daughter, her grades started dropping. She got moody. He didn't know why, which, by the way, I'm not the parent of a teenager, but I work with teenagers. Guess what? They get moody. It happens. Anyway, Briscoe said, guess what? A CPS agent, like a child welfare agent, did come to their house and said they were going to be charged with emotional abuse and other things. And that's when the daughter realized, he said, that her parents might actually be in trouble for all this. That's when she came clean and told them she had been confessing all this stuff to the counselor. And then they had screenshots of all the text messages. The one I want to highlight, and I'm going to show it to you here. There's one screenshot that they took that is, admittedly weird. This is the screenshot. The blue is the daughter. The black is the guidance counselor. I don't know what the first part is about. She said that, like, she had spilled the beans. The parents now knew the counselor was talking to her, and they might go after the counselor. The daughter wanted the counselor to know her parents were onto her. And the daughter says, just letting you know so you're not blindsided if anything comes of this. And the counselor responds, I'm not worried about this because even if they got rid of me or something, the other guidance counselors at the school are basically on my side here. So here's what the counselor says. I know it's hard to read, but I'm not worried at all. They can take their pick from me, who is the cheerleader of the gays, Ashley, who's the trashy lesbian, or Melissa, who is the assistant superintendent's wife who will make her lose her job, talking about the girl's mother. Basically, the counselor is saying, look, everyone I work with supports LGBTQ rights, and they're not going to allow your parents to get away with any of this stuff. Now, let me just say right off the bat, there is a line that a professional, a teacher, a counselor should not cross. I don't think it's professional for a counselor to talk that way to any kid, to use that language with any kid, to text that way with a current student. That seems unprofessional. I don't know what the school's policy is with social media and stuff. I don't know if that deserves a reprimand or that deserves something worse. But I will freely admit, I am not here advocating that the counselor did everything right here, because that seems just totally unprofessional and inappropriate. And this is all assuming Brad Briscoe's narrative is accurate here. We'll get to that. But the other thing I would say is, let's suppose this daughter comes to the counselor and says, I'm worried because my parents are punishing me because I am gay, because I'm in a relationship with this other girl. There is a professional thing like a counselor. What do you do at that point? You're not going to call the parents and say, hey, by the way, your daughter came to me today and told me she's gay. I just wanted you to know. You don't want to reveal that. You don't know if the parents are abusive. You don't know what they're going to do with that information. That's why there's so much controversy right now about similar policies that require counselors to out students who are trans or who want teachers to use their pronouns. Like, that's a horrible idea. Counselors should not be obligated to tell parents what their kid is doing when it comes to pronouns or their gender identity, because if your kid is not telling the parents, if a kid is not telling their parents they are out or gay or trans, maybe there's a reason for that. So, like, I don't think the counselor was under any obligation to tell the parents about whatever the daughter was telling her. I think that's fine. That's a policy. That's a way to keep the kids safe, especially if the daughter feels like her parents are abusive, physically, emotionally, what have you. So I don't know that the counselor should have said anything to the parents. Again, where I got weirded out in this story is the text messages. I don't know why they were texting, unless maybe the counselor thought this child is in trouble. She needs an adult who's her advocate. So maybe I'll communicate with her. But again, then you got to keep it professional. And usually most public school districts have a way for adults to communicate with students that can be transparent. And like, if any administrator wanted to peek in on what they were saying, they would be allowed to do that. Most public school districts have a system like that. So I don't love the text messages here. Anyway, so this is the story Brad Briscoe said. He also said that he told the superintendent about all this and they had a meeting. And the superintendent said, I'm going to investigate this. But after the investigation, the superintendent told them, quote, everything the counselor did was in good faith. And so the investigation didn't say the counselor did anything inappropriate. His conclusion that Brad Briscoe told the church is that you better not be a Christian in Anderson County, which is weird because that place is like more than 50% Christian. It's Kentucky. Come on, give me a break. You're fine if you're a Christian in Kentucky. But after that monologue at his church, conservative Christians in the community began spreading it. The family got a lawyer. They got a law firm to send a letter to the school board detailing everything I just told you, with screenshots in the mix. And their argument is that the counselor violated her professional code of ethics and deserves to be punished. They also say the superintendent didn't do her job when she was investigating the matter. So it's not a lawsuit, but they're saying the school board needs to take action. They need to punish some people. And they say the counselor was trying to thwart the Briscoes' parental decisions in order to facilitate the daughter and her girl, like the classmates' romantic relationship. This counselor was trying to override the parents' wishes. And the counselor wanted their daughter to go to a therapist. And apparently the counselor told the daughter that if you go see a Christian counselor, they'll probably subject you to conversion therapy, which the Briscoes said, you're assaulting our faith. The counselor said you should go see a more affirming therapist. And the lawyers for the family said the family opted for a more objective option. I don't know what that means, because like if you're not seeing an affirming therapist, what's objective? Someone who says being gay is wrong? Like, I don't know what that means. But anyway, the reason part of this is a problem also. I also want to point this out. So the superintendent heard that this video was starting to go viral, and the superintendent issued one statement on the matter, and it was posted on the district's website. Statement from Sheila Mitchell, superintendent of the schools. I'll blow this up a little bit so you can see it. I have become aware of a video posted on Ballard Baptist Church's Facebook page alleging many accusations. I have been asked to provide a statement regarding this video and the content of it. FERPA rights of students and privacy rights of staff do not allow me, as superintendent, to discuss preliminary details, confirm or deny publicly made accusations, consent or the outcome of the investigation unless the parents of the students sign a release for me to discuss this matter publicly. And I'll stop there. Basically, what you're saying is, I would love to tell you my side of the story. I would love to tell you the counselor's side of the story. We are legally not allowed to do that unless the parents give us permission to. Look at the last line in this statement. If the parents sign a release for me to respond publicly, I will provide an updated release with additional information. Interesting. That was over a week ago. So earlier this week, there was a school board meeting in the district. And guess what? Conservative Christians overtook the entire space because they all know this story by now. They're furious at the school board for not holding the superintendent and the counselor accountable. And I'm not going to show you the entire meeting. It's like an hour and a half long, but it opens up with the school board representative saying, listen, you are all here. We will have time for public comments. We will get to you, but we want you to know we legally cannot just fire people on a whim. Don't ask us to do that. What the superintendent said about like their side of the story, we can't tell it to you. That's also true. You can't ask us to do things that are not in our power. So by all means, if you have concerns, let us hear about them, but don't be mad because we can't make any decisions. And the whole meeting was just angry Christian after angry Christian talking about how angry they were with this whole situation. The Briscoes, by the way, also spoke there. One speaker brought up that the counselor's actions may have been millstone offenses. And if you are Christian, you might be familiar that that's a reference to a Bible verse that says if someone causes another to sin, it'd be better if the person were murdered. So that to me is a death threat. That's messed up. Others treated this whole school board meeting as a religious revival. They're spewing Bible verses left and right as if anyone should care about those. But that's where we are right now. By the way, the school board superintendent said this week also, this is in an email. Where did it go? Oh no, I lost it. Let me bring that back up here. I just had it. The school board, the superintendent, there we go. Let me share this with you here. There we go. On Tuesday, Mitchell, the superintendent, told the Herald Leader in an email, because of the students' privacy rights, I am not able to comment on anything stated by the parents in recent days, including at our school board meeting. I'm unable to provide further detail or comment without a release signed by the parents. It's the same thing she wrote in the statement, which means the Briscoes have not given her permission to talk about and share her side of the story. Why is that? We don't know the answer. I'm very curious to hear what the counselor says about all this. Very curious what the investigation said by the superintendent. I don't know why the family has basically gagged this superintendent for the past several months. So that's interesting. And now we have to wait and see. Will the district release the superintendent's findings so the public can hear the other side of the story? Will they cave to the Christian mob that is out for blood and wants his counselor and superintendent fired? What mistakes would district officials say were made? And I think one other question I would like to know is, how would these conservative Christians who were part of this mob at the school board meeting, what do they think would have been the proper way for the school district to handle a girl coming to her counselor saying, I am gay, I'm in a relationship, my parents are punishing me because of all this? What do they think the counselor should have done? Because I promise you that whatever answers they give are not going to be good ones. And it's worth noting that I'm sure you all know LGBTQ students who are not affirmed face an increased risk of self-harm or worse. Like, we should want counselors looking out for those kids' best interests. These parents, the Briscoes, they don't want that, but the counselor does. And so even if I think some of that stuff she did was inappropriate or crossed a line, I don't think the intention was wrong. I mean, I don't want the school district to appease the mob. Like, I want the board to assess if the superintendent's report was fair. And if it was, they should say that. And if this, I want to know from the superintendent, do you think the counselor did anything that crossed a line? And if so, what was it? And what punishment should be doled out for that? Because these other zealots, they've already made up their mind based on one side of the story. We have not heard both sides. And I don't think there's any reason for the board, certainly, to cave into their demands without first taking an honest look at what the other side is saying. One coda to this story is that the counselor in question here, she was in another newspaper article a year ago when this district passed a policy saying teachers should use a kid's pronouns, even if they're trans. She supported that move, and in the story, she pointed out she's a born-again Christian. So the counselor in this story is a born-again Christian, and I find that interesting as well. What questions do you all have while I'm gearing up? I got a couple more quick stories to get to, and then I'll wrap this up. But yeah, it seems like there may have been some, not exactly crossed, but blurred lines. Also, it seems like there is way too many unreliable narrators in the situation. That may be true. Again, I'm not even casting doubt on the dad here, but I would like to know what the other side of the story is. I find it weird he doesn't seem to want to know what the other side of the story is. Wonder why. I wonder why the family hasn't allowed them to tell their side. I know. Especially if they're the ones making a public fuss about this, going to a live stream church service and sharing their grievances, telling their people to go to a school board meeting to air their grievances. Like, they've already set the stage. They already have their version of the story, but for whatever reason, they don't want the other side sharing it. That should be weird for everybody. All right. Couple more happy stories, and then I will call it a day here. But again, they are happy stories here. I'm going to start with this story about Andrew Miller, who was an inmate at the West Virginia Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation. The story with him, and this is the honest truth here, he entered prison in 2021. He was convicted of breaking and entering, and he was given a sentence of 1 to 10 years. His projected release date was April of 2025. Now, he may have been able to leave prison earlier. Here he is right here. He could have left prison earlier based on good behavior, but that's the situation. He was going to be in prison until 2025. But the question is, what happens in prison? Well, it turns out he also was struggling with substance abuse. And in the West Virginia prison Division of Corrections and Rehab, they say, all right, well, if you want parole, if you want to be released and you have a substance abuse problem, you have to go through substance abuse treatment. And Andrew Miller here says, that's fine. I'm happy to go through a treatment program. The problem is that the treatment program, it's called the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment, RSAT. Their program was religious. This is a 6 to 12 month program that Andrew would have had to complete if he wanted any chance of parole, but it was religious. It has the Lord's Prayer in it. It has the Serenity Prayer. It includes the infamous, 12 steps, which reference a higher power. Part of the handbook tells participants, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Some of the homework he had to do involved telling the course leader what God means to me and what prayer means to me. And so here's the thing. Miller, who's an atheist, says, I'm trying to be honest here. I can't go through this program because I don't believe in God. But he says, I'm happy to go through any other substance abuse treatment program because there are secular ones that are options. Smart Recovery is another example. They do the same type of thing, but it's secular. So he makes that offer. He writes a letter to the commissioner of the prison, but they basically deny his requests. He complained about that. He challenged it. Nope. Everyone in charge said, nope, you got to go through the RSAT program, which is religious. He was actually denied parole 3 separate times because the parole board said, we can't even consider your application because you haven't finished your substance abuse treatment program. So this guy was just stuck in prison, at least until his release date, couldn't get out earlier because he wasn't pretending to be a Christian. And I think it's worth pointing out the irony here. Here he is saying, I want to be honest with you because I want to show you I'm a good person. I'm a rehabbed person. So I'm telling you the truth. I can't pretend to be a Christian. I'm not. And these people are saying, no, we need you to lie and fake being a Christian so that the parole board thinks you're a good, honest person. And the incentives there are totally messed up. So American Atheists said, we're filing a lawsuit over this. They actually sued the West Virginia department here. I'm going to show you this here. They sued the prison. They sued West Virginia for forcing religion on incarcerated people. And one of the things they said here, West Virginia, like too many states, is forcing Christianity on the people incarcerated in their facilities as a condition of release. Attacks like this on the rights of atheists, humanists, and other non-Christian persons who interact with the prison are ongoing and widespread. Look at this. American atheists also worked with Mountain State Justice to bring about this lawsuit. No one should be compelled to sacrifice their moral or religious creed to obtain release from incarceration. So, I mean, they're right. This should be a slam dunk case because who on earth thinks what Miller is asking for is unfair? It's not. It's not a complicated request. So they filed this lawsuit. Long story short, in July of this year, a district judge issued a preliminary injunction saying, hey, prisons in West Virginia, you cannot do this. The judge said you got to either end the RSAT program as a condition of his parole. You just can't consider it, or you have to give him an alternative. Those are your two options, this judge says, which is, yes, that's the right ruling. It was a preliminary injunction, but it was a powerful ruling. And this judge said, plenty of other states have faced lawsuits over doing what you're doing right now, and the courts have unanimously agreed that the religious content of those treatment programs violates the Constitution. This RSAT program is no less religious, no less coercive than the ones that have already been struck down. Okay, so good, right decision. And so after presenting the prison with that option, the prison had the option, do you want to fight this ruling in court or what? But there was another downside, because if Andrew Miller began a secular treatment program, it would have taken several months, and his next parole hearing was before that. So once again, even if he chose one of those options, he was still going to have to stay in prison longer than he may have had to. So in his situation, the only plausible scenario here was for the prison to say, we're just not going to consider your completion of the RSAT program when it comes to deciding if you can go on parole. And here's the update now. And here's what I was really happy to see this week. This is also from American Atheists here. The update is that this guy has won his case. I mean, he won his case earlier, but a couple things have happened. The prison is not fighting his ruling. They're not challenging it. They accept the decision. They said he does not have to have his RSAT completion. It's no longer a condition of his parole. The parole board can decide whether or not he can go free separate from the completion of that program. And guess what? He's a free guy. I actually have this picture to share with you right here. There he is. He's free. He's back out. And that's true. The parole board was able to see him in October last month because they didn't have to consider the treatment program anymore. They looked at the rest of his record and said, yeah, you're eligible to get out of prison early. So he's out. So that's nice. A couple other things the West Virginia decision did is they said they are changing their policies so no one has to go through this again. And that includes using the Smart Recovery Program as an acceptable substitute for RSAT, which also, that's what he was fighting for. And they also are paying $80,000 in legal fees to Mountain State Justice and American Atheists for having to fight this stupid, unnecessary battle. So it's a win for everyone involved, except I guess Miller, who was in jail much longer than he needed to be because he had to file this lawsuit. I did get a chance to indirectly chat with him, and he sent me this statement. I'm going to share this with you here. Here's the statement from Miller. He said, I am so happy that the judge ruled in our favor. No one should have to compromise their beliefs just to be given a fair chance at release. And I'll leave it at that. I want people to understand their rights and for government officials to understand that they can't force religious beliefs on people no matter their situation. So love to see that. Good for him. And again, he shouldn't have had to file a lawsuit for the prison system to do the obvious. Any questions about that story there before I move on to the final one here? He paid his debt to society. He deserves to be able to put his life back together. I wish him the best. That, Spencer, that's my feeling as well. Like, I know people already might have a stereotype or a bias against people who were in prison. But again, he was found guilty. He paid his debt, and he deserves the chance to now rebuild his life. And I'm glad he gets that chance. So good. All right, last story for you here. This is another story involving an inmate in prison, and this is another atheist inmate. This is a guy named Mark Janney, and the story in his case goes all the way back to 2015. In 2015, Mark Janney was released from prison. It doesn't matter why he was in there, but also he paid his debt to society. He was a free man. He has a parole officer, though. His parole officer says that if you want to stay out of prison, well, there are certain conditions you have to meet for your parole. And one of them is you need a place to stay. You need a residence of record. And the parole officer, whose name is John Gamez, says you have to live at the Denver Rescue Mission, which is a Christian homeless shelter in Colorado. And the thing is, like, I'm not kidding about a Christian Christian homeless shelter. That shelter requires residents to participate in worship services, Bible studies, and go through faith-based counseling. And Mark Janney here is an atheist. He can lie to you, but he also doesn't want to participate in any of that stuff, and he shouldn't have had to for all the reasons we just talked about. The courts should not be allowed to force anybody, much less an atheist, to attend Christian anything as a requirement of parole. So Mark Janney suggested an alternative. He actually had some family friends, and he asked if he could stay in their home, so he had a place of residence. That option was rejected. I'm not sure why, but Gamez says no. So we went to Mark Janney goes to the Christian Homeless Center. He does not participate in the religious stuff, and because he didn't participate, they kick him out of the shelter. And because he was kicked out of the shelter, Gamez revoked Mark Janney's parole and sent him back to prison. And when the parole board saw Mark Janney a few weeks later, they said, yeah, you violated the conditions of your parole. So they sent him back to jail for 5 months. That's 5 months longer than he should have had to be in jail. He had already paid his debts. So he was incarcerated unnecessarily because he refused to participate in a Christian ministry. So I should say, like, there was other incidents, like he gets into a fight with someone in the prison. That's why he had to stay there 5 months. But again, he's only in there because he didn't play along with the Christian thing. So in June of 2020, the ACLU and Americans United for Separation of Church and State, I should back up here for a second. While he's there for those 5 months, he files a lawsuit against his parole officer, but he tries to do it himself and he doesn't have a lawyer. And like, if you're not a lawyer, you don't know how to write those things. And a judge tosses out that case because, I don't know, it looked unprofessional. He didn't do it right. So in 2020, ACLU and Americans United say, listen, we're stepping in here. We're going to appeal that decision on your behalf. And we're going to take up this case on your behalf. And so this is from the ACLU. ACLU and Americans United courts parolee Janney should not have been jailed for refusing to attend worship services. So they take up the case on his behalf. And guess what? This paid off because in 2021, the appellate court says we're overturning the dismissal of the case. And I'm going to skip the legalese here, but they did say every person has the basic right to be free from state-sponsored religious coercion. And they said, listen, start over. You can bring this case to trial. We undo the fact that the district court threw your case out. So he had to start over, but that case could proceed. And the reason I bring all this up is because this week there was a big update to the court, to the case. And here it is. Colorado man secures another court victory after he was jailed for refusing to attend Christian worship services while on parole. The big update is that a U.S. district judge says, yeah, I looked at your case and you can absolutely move forward to try to get financial damages for everything you went through. And you can argue that your religious freedom was constitutionally violated. So they say, I'm going to scroll down here for a second. The district court has ruled that Mark Janney is eligible to recover damages for the violations of his religious freedom. Specifically, he is eligible to recover punitive damages, compensatory damages for loss of liberty, economic damages for loss of wages for part of the period of his confinement, and nominal damages. So it doesn't mean he has any money yet, doesn't mean he won the case on the merits yet, but this case gets to move forward, which is the thing he was trying to do a few years ago, and it just didn't work. But now there's a chance his case is going to be heard on the merits with lawyers who know what they're doing. And so, I mean, I'm optimistic that this will end well. I hope, and knock on wood, I hope it goes well. Rachel Laser, who's the CEO of Americans United, said, again, our government must never force anyone to practice a faith that is not their own, and of course, must never jail anyone for refusing to submit to religious proselytization. So this is a case against the parole officer, not the prison. And they're saying that guy violated the constitutional freedom. Like, I want everyone involved in prolonging this guy's imprisonment to be penalized. But at least in this case, the person most responsible will at least be taken to court. And that's a huge victory. And we'll see what happens with the merits. We'll follow up on this later. But any questions about that story right now? Otherwise, I think I'm done for the night. Christianity literally jailing people for not agreeing with them. No kidding. If this was twisted and a Christian prisoner, guess what? There's a lot of Christian prisoners, a lot more than atheists. If a Christian prisoner in the federal system was forced to go through something where they wouldn't allow you to talk about God or something, that would be illegal too. You will never see that story. This would never happen that way. So yeah, I haven't seen this story mentioned a lot in Christian media outlets, by the way, which I find interesting. Neither of the last two. Cool. With that, if you have any other last questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to take a second to brag. If you are a New York Times crossword puzzle enthusiast, today, Friday's puzzle is mine. I hope you like the theme list. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. It's my 5th puzzle for the Times. They've all been themeless puzzles because I'm not clever enough to come up with a theme. But I hope if you like crosswords, you did Fridays, you like the long entries because I had fun with those. Cool. Thank you to Den for all of his help with the moderation and all of you for commenting along the way. I appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I will be back here on Friday after Thanksgiving, so I'll see you then. And have a lovely week, everybody. I'm signing off. I'll see you later. Have a good one.